What's up out there? Welcome back to the Halloween Horror Movie Marathon of 2022, and this is the final episode of this series. So, we're going to jump right into it. The first movie that I watched this week is Murder Party from 2007. This is directed by Jeremy Saulnier, who you'd know from The Green Room or Blue Ruin, if you've seen any of those. There didn't really know any of the cast on this. This is an extra movie that I tossed on the list. I watched this on Vudu. It's a US movie, and I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. This is kind of a comedy horror movie, and I've watched this a few years ago during one of these marathons, but I was sitting there the other night bored, and I thought, you know what? I haven't seen this in a while. This is the second time I've watched it, and I wanted to visit it. Basically, the premise is some guy's just walking along. He finds this envelope that says, hey, come join this murder party. And it's a bunch of artists that are going to try to kill somebody to make art with it. And they all have their different ideas on how they're going to do it. But hilarity ensues, things go sideways, and it's kind of it's a funny movie. If you're into twisted and violent movies, I enjoyed this one quite a bit. I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. And if you're into this kind of thing, I would recommend it. So this is Murder Party from 2007. Okay, next up is a trilogy, and I needed to get through the first two to get to the third one, and that's where the first two are extras, and the third one is what I actually needed. So we'll get into that one here in a second, but these are the Warlock. This is basically the Warlock franchise. So the first movie is Warlock from 1989. This is directed by Steve Miner, who did Friday the 13th Part 2 and 3. He directed Halloween H2O, Lake Placid, and House. The cast of note in this movie is Julian Sands. You'd recognize him from a bunch of other things, but he started off here. This was an extra film. Like I said, I needed these to get to the third one. I watched all these on Tubi. They're all made in the US, and I gave them all, well, I gave the first two 3 out of 5 stars. We'll get to those in a second. And I would recommend this. I like this movie. I saw this back in high school. This came out when I was in high school, and I saw this in the theater, and I really enjoyed this. I like this a lot. It's not a great movie. Like, there's some bad special effects in it, and the story's not necessarily the greatest, but if you're going to watch a movie called Warlock and watch some dude, spit magic spells and try to raise the son of Satan and stuff like that, this is a good movie for that. So if you're into that kind of thing, this is a cool movie. I dig this one. Now, like I said, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It's nothing special. It's not great. I enjoy it. Now, a quick note on my star ratings. 3 for me is middle of the road. So a 2.5 star movie might be something I still like, but for me, the rating has the quality of the movie. So this could be a higher quality movie and get more stars, but it's kind of a bad B movie. The effects are kind of dodgy, like it was using some really old CGI, and I don't remember the graphics and everything being that great back when I saw this at the theater. So even then, even back in the late 80s, this wasn't a great film. So that's the way my scoring reflects the quality and the acting and the cast and the writing and all that kind of thing. I did enjoy this, and I do like a lot of the movies that Steve Miner has directed. So I mean, it just speaks to the quality of, if you can call it quality, of the Halloween and Friday the 13th that he did. But I do like these other movies, and I think this, because you have such a good director for horror movies, you get something like this. It's a low-budget movie, but it's well done, and it's fun and kind of entertaining. Which goes into the next movie, which is Warlock V Armageddon. This is part 2. This was made in 1993. Directed by Anthony Hickox, that did Waxwork 1 and 2 and Hellraiser 3. Hellraiser 3 is one of my favorite Hellraisers, and to see that this guy did this movie here, and I think I actually watched this movie back in the day, so I've probably seen this one twice now. A lot of it didn't seem familiar, and we get Julian Sands back, so you'd know him from wherever. This is also an extra movie. I watched this on Tubi. This is made in the US. I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. Basically, when the first movie ends, it ends with a certain thing happening, and this one kind of picks up from there, sort of. It like tells a whole different story and could be watched separately from the first one, but it incorporates ideas from the first one, if that makes sense. They're not like direct sequels, even though they kind of are. You could watch either one, and you don't necessarily have to have both of them in place. So I kind of dug that. I like this movie. Like I said before, I gave this one 3 out of 5. It's a it's an okay movie. The effects are kind of bad, but given that the guy that directed this directed some other horror movies, and there were some other ones on the list. The Waxwork and the Hellraiser were the ones that I recognized. So, given that he's directed other stuff, this was kind of the expected. It's a good sequel to a pretty good horror movie from the original. Like, they're not great, they're not stellar. Nobody's going to be writing papers on these things talking about how great they are, but they're entertaining and they're cool to watch. That brings us to Warlock III, The End of Innocence, which was made in 1999, or released in 1999. This was directed by Eric Fraser, something like that. I think this is the only thing he ever directed. The cast of note on this one was kind of interesting. This has Ashley Lawrence from Hellraiser 1, 2, and 3. So there's a lot of Hellraiser references in this. And Bruce Payne, which you'd know the face if you saw it. I don't really know him from anything, but I know I do and I don't. Like, he's a bad guy in some movies here and there. Now, the category for this one is the worst sequel of the 90s, and this was made in 1999. So it was made quite a few years after the previous one. Like, the first one was in 89, the next one was in 93, and then this one's in 99. So it's made quite a ways down the road. And this one is kind of weird. So first and foremost, I gave this one 2.5 out of 5 stars. I don't think I would recommend this. And this really doesn't fit the Warlock trilogy. What this feels like, the way I described it in my Letterboxd review, is that it's the cast of Friends goes into Scary Movie 2. This is weird. So the other two were probably made in the US. This one was definitely filmed in Ireland. And when I looked at this, I was thinking Scotland. I don't really know the difference myself. I've been in the US pretty much my whole life, but I've seen plenty of movies that take place in Scotland or Ireland or somewhere in that area, or UK in general. And this had that look. The street signs looked the same. Like, things just didn't look right. The house looked not from the US. And sure enough, this thing was filmed in Ireland. I think it was something to do with Roger Corman's place or something. So this had to have started life as something different. The main character inherits a house, and she has to go to it and collect some stuff before they demolish it because there's weird stuff happening in the place. So it feels very much like a 13 Ghosts or something like that, or House on Haunted Hill. Like, it feels like that sort of movie that then just got, we're going to throw the Warlock in and call it a Warlock 3 movie to save the rights or something. Like, it feels weird. And the whole movie is a complete departure from the Warlock series. You know, you're not trying to birth Satan and all this stuff. You're just, kind of, sort of, but it's more of a haunted house movie, and it totally doesn't fit the tone or anything with the other ones. So you're thinking, well, this is probably a pretty bad movie. It's actually kind of not. It's a bad movie, don't get me wrong. The music is very much 90s. The music was horrifyingly out of place. Like, most directors, when they create a movie, they have music to set a mood. This would just start some 90s tune for no reason. It's just like the weirdest placement of music, and it didn't fit what was going on. It didn't make sense, and it kind of would pull you out of where you were at with this movie. And then they had some really screechy sound effects. This one doll would show up every once in a while, and this eagle flying screech would come up, and it was just completely annoying. And they did that multiple times, like not just a couple, like 6, 8, 10, 12 different times. They kept this with this screeching. And there was a lot of things that were grating about this. And some of the ways that they introduced characters were hilariously bad. Some of the ways that they handled things were hilariously bad. But at the same time, there's kind of a really good haunted house movie going on in this that's like House on Haunted Hill or 13 Ghosts or something like that. And those all came out at the same time. So I have to wonder if these were all part of that same idea, or, the trend or whatever. And like I said, maybe they just threw Warlock on the name, and there was an end monster that was in there that looked like it probably was from some other idea that ended up getting the Warlock superimposed over. I don't know. This wasn't a great movie. I wouldn't recommend watching it unless you're into really bad movies or something. It was entertaining. I will say that this was pretty entertaining. So 2.5 out of 5 stars. This is Warlock III, The End of Innocence from 1999. And next up is a movie called The Nest from 1987. This was directed by Terrence Winkless. Don't know him. Don't know any of the cast in this one. The category for this movie was Insect. This is the second Insect movie, and I had to rent this off of Amazon. This is made in the US, and I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. So this movie was very entertaining. If you want something that's more gory, an old 50s movie about monsters and giant bugs and stuff, but modernized into the 80s and kind of gory, that is this. This was fun. It's a little slow to get going, and I think a lot of people in other reviews that I read said that it was a little too slow, or but then you get to the ending, and the ending does it kind of ramps up as it goes. I really enjoyed this all the way through. You get some character building, some world building, and this is kind of a bad movie, but at the same time, it looks like somebody put some care into it. They didn't just grab their camcorder and go out and make a direct to VHS movie. They actually made a movie and put some effort into it, and there's some decent things going on with this, and it was kind of fun to watch. I'd watch this again. I really liked this a lot, and this is monster movies like this we don't get enough of, I don't think. Just fun. I don't need everything to be the most greatest, absolute bestest ever. I just want a fun movie that I can sit down and watch and maybe watch again. And this one fits that bill. So it gets 3 out of 5 stars. I mean, it was a bad B movie, but not like horribly bad. I mean, it was entertaining. So this was The Nest from 1987. And the final movie that I watched is The Phantom of the Opera from 1925. This was directed by Rupert Julian. The cast of note is Lon Chaney, and this category was for Lon Chaney. I had to pick a Lon Chaney film, so this is the one I chose. I hadn't seen this yet. This is like the classic telling of the Phantom of the Opera. I watched this on Screenbox. It's made in the US, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I would recommend this for completionists, people that really like horror and want to see the old stuff or need it for a list or something like this. It's not any, silent films are probably not anything I would ever recommend to anybody, quite honestly, unless you're a film buff and you want to see something. This was cool. This was kind of like the other one that I watched. In fact, I think I liked the other one better, The Hands of Warlock. I think I liked that better. I liked the way it was set up and worked. This one was cool, and the makeup, and the big thing is the makeup that Lon Chaney puts on. That's what everybody knows this movie for. It's kind of an okay movie. I have seen, there's a newer version of The Phantom of the Opera that's just nothing but singing for 2 solid hours, and that movie's brutal to get through because I don't deal with singing movies very well. This one's an hour and 18 minutes, I think, and it was still a little bit too long in the tooth for me. But it's that classic telling of the Phantom, and I don't know, it was pretty cool. It was worth seeing for this list, for this marathon. So that's Phantom of the Opera from 1925 with 3 out of 5 stars. Okay, to wind this entire series out, the movies that I really enjoyed out of this whole thing, probably Scream and Scream Again was really cool. Brotherhood of Satan was kind of a cool movie. Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. I liked the title of it. I thought it was a little fun. Deathline was definitely good. And a lot of these movies kind of sucked. Fair Game was good. Blood Harvest sucked. Blue Monkey was kind of garbage. Galaxy of Terror, man. The Nest was good. I liked the first 2 Warlock movies. Of course, Murder Party. I talked about that one today. I liked that one. The Sacrament sucked. I liked As the Gods Will. Mad God was good. Nope was really stellar. Pardon the pun. I really liked that one. Maneater I really liked. Barbarian I liked. And then Smile I really liked. Now, this year wasn't very stellar. You got to keep in mind, I have watched over 3,000 movies now, according to Letterboxd, that I've logged or tracked or whatever. And roughly a little less than half of that is horror movies. So I've already watched all the really solid highly rated and regarded films that are horror. So a lot of this stuff is either going to be brand new or lower tier than I've seen in the past. You know what I mean? So this wasn't necessarily a great year, and I kind of wondered how this was going to go going into this one, because this is, I think, my 8th year of doing this, and I watch horror movies all throughout the year. I don't just do this in October. So I tend to watch a lot of the good stuff, maybe not during this, but I do find a lot of new stuff during the marathon. So like Maneater was good, and just give me an excuse to go see Barbarian and smile. I do have the 3 extra credit movies to watch. I'm not going to worry about putting those in a video. And I do want to go see Halloween Ends and get to see Terrifier 2. I may do videos for those movies, but I've got a bunch of other things to do videos on coming up very soon. And I basically am done with my list. So I figured I'd wrap it up with this one. And I hope you've enjoyed following this whole thing. I enjoy doing this every year. And since I've started putting it on YouTube, I've kind of enjoyed doing this, making the videos and stuff for it. I might revamp the format a little bit for next year, because I do this every year. So we'll see. I need to think about that and figure it out. I just kind of winged it this year, and I think I might want to get a little bit more, and not just making the video part, but I mean, I winged the whole list. I added a bunch of stuff to it. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but it's a little fast and loose, and I think I probably want to get a little bit more coordinated on what I do videos on and how I structure everything. So food for thought for next year. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed following this whole series, and that will do it for this one. I've still got some more videos or movies that I'm going to watch for the rest of the month. Be watching them till the 31st. I just won't be making videos on it or tracking them on my list. I may go visit stuff like Hellraiser now, because I watched that crappy Hellraiser that they just released, and I just want to see the first 4 again. So I don't know. We're going to watch some good stuff here. My list is done. This series is over. So we will catch you on the next one. Take care.